You know how there's a war going on between Apple and Android? And you know, the counterpart for laptops, you have MacBook and PC. So I did a thing, and I actually switched. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Mahidi Hassan with another video. So I recently did a thing that I never thought that I would ever do. I've been using my MacBook to edit all my photos, videos for about 2 years now. And it's been working really good for me, but it's also been really struggling. I downloaded Lightroom, Photoshop, and I've been editing all my photos. It's really starting to slow my progress down because the processor has been really slow. Having a slow workflow, especially when you're trying to edit a lot of photos, can be very difficult. It can just make the workflow not very continuous. It can really, you know, mess up your productivity. So I decided to get rid of my MacBook, in a sense, and build my own PC. I know, this sounds crazy. I am an Apple lover. I have Apple everything. Got an iPhone, got AirPods, got a MacBook. Now, the biggest feature that I love about Apple products is the AirDrop. That's something that I think is unrivaled. PC does not have anything that matches it. If you know something that matches it, like 100%, please let me know, but I have yet to find something. AirDrop allows you to share files so seamlessly in between all of your Apple products. So I can finish editing a photo on my MacBook and I can just simply AirDrop it to my phone and upload it within 5 seconds. It's really quick. But I did the math, I crunched the numbers, and to me it just made sense to make the switch to building my own PC. Why did I do it? So I kind of briefly outlined the main reason why. My laptop was really struggling to perform, and another reason why I did it was I've always kind of wanted to do it, and I thought this would be a great opportunity and a great learning experience to really test out the waters and give it a shot. So I've never actually built my own PC before. It was definitely a challenge, for sure. I think an easy way to explain it is it's just very complicated Lego pieces is what it is. You essentially have all the parts that you need and you just need to know how to put them all together. The difficult part is not identifying what you need. It's just making sure you install everything correctly to make sure that it runs properly. So a lot of people build different rigs, different PCs with different purposes. The purpose of mine is for photo and video editing. One popular reason why people build PCs is for gaming. And one thing that I'll talk about is the requirements for both those things are actually very different. So first, let's talk about the pieces of the PC. So you have your RAM, you have your graphics card, your video card, or your GPU. Then you have your central processing unit, your CPU. And you have your storage. Now there are other pieces as well, which may be less important. We're just going to focus on these. So typically when people are building video gaming for gaming PCs, they focus heavily on getting a very expensive and well-performing GPU, the graphics card. You essentially want that to be very strong and powerful so that the games that you're playing, you can play at, you know, the best resolutions, fastest frame rates, so you get the most beautiful image possible. Now when it comes to photo and video editing, it's actually not the GPU that's important. The main component that's important is your CPU. Second most important would be your RAM, and third most important obviously would be storage. So the reason that the CPU is more important than the GPU is because when you're using Lightroom and Photoshop to actually edit the content, as well as mainly when you're exporting after you're finished, that really takes advantage of the CPU. That really uses the CPU and not so much the GPU. Now what's important is the amount of cores that you have in your CPU. The higher the cores, typically the better the CPU, especially for this application. It's going to allow you to export your photos and videos a lot faster. So in theory, you could build a relatively cheap computer with a really good CPU, a good amount of RAM, but have a really crappy GPU, a bare bones GPU, and you would be completely fine. So that's kind of the route that I ultimately decided to take. Alright, so let's talk about the specs of this PC. I am not a computer techie. I don't know all the crazy technical details about how the parts function together. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the parts that I bought. So for my CPU, I'm running an AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. This is a 3.6 gigahertz 8-core processor. For my RAM, I'm running Corsair 32 gigabytes DDR4. Now when it comes to RAM, I got 32 gigabytes. The bare minimum that I would go with if you're gonna do video and photo editing is 16 gigs. I wouldn't go anything less than that. But 32 is kind of like the sweet spot, that safe spot. If you really want to be safe and be a little bit overkill, you could go 64 gigs. But again, one thing that's nice about PCs when it comes to, as opposed to Macs and laptops, is I can upgrade in the future. So right now I have 32 gigs. It's working great for me. But in the future, say it's, running really, really slow, I can just upgrade to my 64 gigs for a relatively cheap price. For my GPU, I'm running Radeon RX 570. Again, this is not the best GPU out on the market, but it does support 4K, which was kind of my minimum requirement for my GPU. However, one thing that I will say is for video editing and exporting, there is an option to actually accelerate that process using your GPU. So it doesn't hurt to have a good GPU, but I wouldn't say it's definitely not mandatory. All right, so now let's talk about the storage. You have a couple of options here. So storage essentially comes in 3 main types. So you have your HDD storage, you have your SSD storage, and then you have this newer type of storage called NVMe SSD. So HDD is pretty much your slowest type of storage. So when you edit photos and you save them onto a hard drive, essentially what your computer is doing is it's reading the content on that drive, and it does that at a certain speed. Now it reads and writes to that hard drive whenever you are saving photos as well as displaying them. So there are speeds associated with how quickly your computer can process that data from that hard drive. Now when we're comparing HDD, SSD, and NVMe SSD, your HDD is going to be the slowest. Next is going to be your SSD, which is your solid state drive. This is a different type of technology and it is faster than HDD. Then you have something that's a little bit faster than that, which is your NVMe SSD. So this is pretty much gonna give you your fastest read-write speeds, and I highly, highly recommend this if you are going to build a PC for photo and video editing. Now the actual amount of storage can really vary depending on how much content you plan on making. I wanted to make this kind of future-proof, so I decided to go with 1 terabyte of NVMe SSD. Now you could do it, to save some money, you could do 500 gigabytes of NVMe SSD and then 500 gigabytes of regular SSD, but I would definitely stay away from the HDD storage, as that is super slow. It's not going to give you an optimal workflow. One other component that's really, really important when you're editing photos, obviously, is the monitor. So the screen that you're working on needs to be high quality as well. So there are different type of monitors out there as well. So again, I'm not a tech geek, so I'm just going to give you a basic rundown. So you have different types of monitors. So the type of monitor that you're going to want for photo and video editing are IPS monitors as opposed to TN panel monitors, which are a different technology. So the benefit of IPS monitors is that they have really good color accuracy as well as viewing angles. The disadvantage of them is that the response time is typically slower compared to, say, TN panel monitors, but you really don't care about that unless you're doing gaming, which we're not. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a PC expert here. This is definitely what I just Googled, and these are the results that I found. So if you have any, questions or concerns, Google it. So that pretty much wraps up the specs of my computer. I know what you guys must be thinking. I'm an Apple trader, but it just made sense for me to do it. And you know what? I've been using it for about 3 months, and I'm really happy. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and you want to see more content. Until next time, stay safe, stay swag. Dude, my hair is getting so long, Simon.
I know, stop.
This is crazy,
Disgusting.
isn't it? I like it.
You look gross.
I'm gonna go for that man bun / long beard look.
Look at me in the eye. Yo!
I think it'll be
Look
nice.
at me. Before Eid, it better be gone.
I'm not cutting my hair.
Look at me.
I'm not
I said look at me.
I'm not cutting my hair.
It better be gone.
I'm just saying, I like it.
Joking.
I like it.